Welcome to this explainer. Okay, picture this. Today we're taking an absolutely epic journey to the single most hostile environment on our entire planet. Imagine trying to construct an 11-kilometer-long pipe straight down to the absolute bottom of the Mariana Trench. Right? To pull off this massive engineering challenge, we're going to have to survive some terrifying physics and, well, encounter bizarre biology that literally defies imagination. We're diving deep into exactly how we could build this thing, what we'd see along the way, and the pretty sobering reality waiting for us at the very bottom.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for this descent. First up, the great unmapped abyss. Then, descending into the twilight. Third, we've got the bioluminescent midnight zone, followed by the crushing abyssal depths. Fifth is the alien Hadal underworld, and we'll wrap up with a tragic deep-sea discovery. Going down.
Section 1. The Great Unmapped Abyss, the Challenge of the Deep. So, before we even drop the very first section of our pipe, we really need to understand the sheer scale of the mystery we're dealing with here. We're attempting to build an 11-kilometer structure in an environment that is, for all intents and purposes, instantly deadly to human beings.
To put this massive mystery into perspective, humanity has successfully mapped 100% of the surface of the Moon and 100% of Mars, which is millions of kilometers away. But our own oceans? We've only mapped a shocking 26.1% of them. In fact, based on a 2019 estimate, scientists believe that 90% of sea species are entirely unknown to us. We literally know more about outer space than the very planet we're standing on. It's wild.
So, how did we even find the deepest point to begin with? Well, back between 1872 and 1876, there was this research team on the HMS Challenger. They were literally just manually dropping heavy objects tied to ropes to measure ocean depths. When they reached the waters near Japan and Australia, their kilometers-long ropes just kept sinking. Finally, an 11-kilometer-long rope hit the bottom, measuring 10,994 meters. They discovered the deepest patch of the Mariana Trench, which we now call, appropriately, the Challenger Deep.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how deep that is. If you took the tallest mountain on Earth, Mount Everest, dropped it into the Challenger Deep, and then stacked 2 entire Burj Khalifas on top of it, you would still be half a kilometer short of even seeing the surface. There is virtually nothing, natural or man-made, on the surface that compares to this kind of depth.
Section 2. Descending into the twilight, the epipelagic and mesopelagic zones. All right, let's begin our descent and start laying this pipe. We start in the epipelagic zone, which is the first 200 meters. Here, sunlight supports phytoplankton and massive sea plants. But, it's not perfectly safe. The marine life here is actually highly dangerous. Consider the super toxic stonefish, which is perfectly disguised as a rock, or the deadly stingray that tragically killed an experienced 62-year-old diver, Philip Chan, while he was just clearing animals from an aquarium surface. Danger is everywhere, even up here in the sunlight.
Dropping below 200 meters, we enter the mesopelagic zone. You absolutely need a pressure suit here. The light is fading incredibly fast, and plants just completely disappear. The creatures that live here, like the incredibly long, sharp-toothed viperfish and lancetfish, have evolved these massive eyes just to see in the dim light. And because there's barely any food, they practice what's called vertical migration. Basically, they live in the safety of the depths, but quickly swim up to the sunlit surface to aggressively hunt, and then head right back to the shadows.
Section 3. The bioluminescent midnight zone. Entering the bathypelagic. Let's move to the next phase and see how this builds, because as we plunge deeper and cross that 1,000-meter mark, human endurance completely ends. A standard pressure suit? Yeah, that's no longer going to protect you. From here on out, you need a heavy-duty submarine. And our whole pipe-laying strategy has to drastically change.
See, transporting an 11-kilometer solid steel pipe straight from the surface is just impossible. It's way too heavy. So our engineering plan requires underwater assembly. We start with polyester or vinyl resin pipes that are reinforced with fiberglass. But as the pressure down here becomes totally lethal, that fiberglass would just shatter. So, at these extreme depths, underwater robots have to take over to seamlessly transition the pipe into thick, pressure-resistant steel.
And those robots are going to need some incredibly powerful flashlights because we've now entered the bathypelagic zone. There is absolutely zero sunlight here. None. The only light you'll see looks like thousands of tiny flashing fireflies. This is bioluminescence, light generated by the animals themselves. It's a strict evolutionary necessity just to survive in the pitch black.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how the extreme darkness down here forces animals to behave in some truly shocking ways. Take the anglerfish, for example. It uses a glowing bacteria on an antenna to lure its prey. But finding a mate in a pitch-black, freezing ocean, it's practically impossible. So when a male finally finds a female by tracking her scent, he bites her stomach, releases an enzyme that literally dissolves their skin and fuses their bodies together, permanently. He basically becomes a permanent appendage, sharing her nutrients for the rest of his life just to ensure they can reproduce. Nature's wild, right?
Section 4. The crushing abyssal depths. Surviving the abyssal pelagic. Down we go to the 4,000-meter mark. The temperature is hovering right just above freezing. And the pressure here? It's 600 times greater than at the surface. If you somehow stepped outside your submarine right now, your body would be obliterated instantly. Welcome to the abyssal zone.
Animals down here have had to make some massive biological compromises. Because there's zero light, eyes are completely useless. Everything is blind, relying solely on smell and sound. To survive that crushing pressure, many creatures have actually ditched their skeletons entirely. They've become incredibly flexible, like the bizarre, almost sci-fi-looking giant phantom jelly. And food is so incredibly scarce that they move extremely slowly just to conserve energy. Some don't even move at all. They act as sit-and-wait predators, covered in a sticky gel, just patiently waiting for prey to accidentally bump into them.
Section 5. The Alien Hadal Underworld, the absolute bottom. Okay, our robotic pipe layers are now pushing past 6,000 meters into the final, most hostile frontier on Earth, the Hadal Zone. This place is so foreign, it hardly even feels like it belongs to our planet's ecosystem.
The physics here are just downright terrifying. When NASA designed spacecraft to land on Venus, they have to engineer them to withstand a crushing atmospheric pressure of 93 bars. But down here in the Mariana Trench, the pressure hits a staggering 1,086 bars. To put that into perspective, that's the equivalent of having 100 elephants standing directly on your head, or 5 fully grown blue whales resting on your shoulders. Our pipe-building robots have to be unbelievably durable, because this environment can easily implode even the absolute toughest metal.
Because the conditions are just so brutally extreme, life is incredibly sparse and, well, bizarre. Nothing larger than 3 centimeters usually survives, and the creatures that do make it, they are totally alien-like. Take the barrel-eye fish. It has a fully transparent, glowing forehead where you can literally see all its organs crystal clear. Or the telescope octopus, which is entirely see-through. It honestly looks like a handful of organs packed into a floating plastic grocery bag.
Section 6. A tragic deep-sea discovery. The end of the line. We've done it. We've routed our pipe all the way down to the 11-kilometer mark, the absolute bottom of the Challenger Deep. But arriving here kind of shifts our focus to a rather sobering reality about human exploration and our lasting impact on this planet.
Get this, only 27 people in all of human history have ever laid eyes on the Challenger Deep. Compare that to the more than 7,500 people who have summited Mount Everest. Why is that? Well, because the engineering is immensely complex, the cost is absolutely astronomical, and honestly, private investors would rather fund profitable ventures into outer space than deep-sea expeditions.
So the crucial point is, because it's so remote, so hostile, and so incredibly difficult to reach, you'd probably think this environment is completely untouched by human hands, right? But what did scientists actually find when they finally managed to peer into the deepest, darkest, most isolated corner of our entire world?
They found a plastic bag. Yeah, it's truly heartbreaking. In an environment where the shear pressure destroys solid metal, human-made plastic waste has somehow survived, sinking 11 kilometers down into the abyss. The trash we generate up on the surface is already infiltrating and polluting an incredibly delicate ecosystem that we've barely even begun to map.
It really leaves us with a heavy thought. The oceans hold the vast majority of our planet's secrets. They're full of bizarre biology and extreme physics that totally challenge our understanding of life itself. Will we destroy the ocean's most ancient alien mysteries before we even get the chance to understand them? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this journey to the deep sparks a desire to protect the unseen wonders of our world. See you next time.